why did Health and Safety Killjoys cancel an old folks' weekly fish supper? The answer, the food could be too cold.
Oh, that's right. Some old folks in sheltered housing in Norwich can no longer have a fish and chip supper from the takeaway in case the guy that brings it doesn't bring it back quick enough and they're too cold. Find out more in just a moment. You're watching The Right Stuff, of course, live on 5 with Dominic Holland, Amanda Lamb and our special guest, Jim Kerr. Still to come this morning, does the prospect of celebrity MPs filling the Commons give you the willies? Do you trust their motives? Could they do better or worse than the greedy little piggies we have at present? 0207 173 5555 is the number for your thoughts. But first, here's Jim with the headlines. What have you got for us, Jim?
Well, the first story here concerns the Queen's Garden Bash and the fact that the leader of the BNP, Mr Nick Griffin, had been invited. And that caused a furore, of course.
Yeah, he was a guest, wasn't he?
Yes. And as a result, Mr Griffin has decided not to embarrass the Queen, as he put it, certainly according to Daily Star. And so he's not going. And I think... not sure how the Queen feels about that, but there's an interesting picture. I don't know if they will. She looks miffed in this picture, we'll see if she has anything to say about it.
OK. I have to say I'm mighty relieved. What else? You got another BNP?
Yes, we're here with. It's the idea that there's been, musicians, and hopefully I'm one of them, calling for the rights to stop BNP selling CDs. I guess that on the BNP site they've been selling various artists. I think here Blur, Madness, etc., etc.
Madness, that would be appropriate.
Billy Bragg, who I know it's the last thing he would want. And so, yeah, the musicians are calling out because technically, I guess, anyone can sell CDs, You buy them, you put them on site, and you can sell them, and it doesn't mean that the artists, of course, are endorsing the site. But, so they're looking for, I guess, a clarification.
You ever been caught up in anything like that, your music being used?
Well, kind of recently we got... I'm laughing, but it isn't very funny. We got an email from a fan, or a tweet from a fan saying, Jim, there's some party in Cuba or something that's threatening to overthrow the government, and they're using your soundtrack on the website. Can you get them to stop it? And I thought, well, where are they? In the jungle? I mean, the answer is no, you can't. Your track could be used. You can come out and make a statement, distancing yourself from it. As I say, there's really not a lot can be done about it.
You can see why political parties do it, though, can't you?
Well, you can, yes. I mean, this is the thing, music has always been used to
things can only get better, still resonates in my ears. That turned out to be a big fat lie, didn't it? OK. Anything else?
Yes, coming up with... I hope I've got this in the order. The Daily Telegraph. Yeah. And it's about the MPs. Yes, another one. I guess it's today's latest. 50,000 extension to give MP's brother a bed. And it's Julie Kirkbride's...
What a lovely photo. Did we pay for that? Yes.
Yeah. And so I guess it's just the latest salvo. It's not getting boring, this, but it's certainly...
I think with Julie Kirkbride, everyone can smell blood. I mean, she is so damaged and so tainted.
The husband stood down, so therefore was guilty, and she's not standing down, which is completely incorrect. She's party to the same crime as her husband. So how can she continue standing? Doesn't make any sense.
It's not a crime, of course, because they were sticking to the rules, which they made themselves.
Well, that's very debatable.
Yes. Well, the interesting thing is, I think the warden and his wife think that Julie Kirkbride will step down. You just wonder why she may be dragging it out as long as she is. I don't know. We shall see. We shall see. I think there's more to... She's facing her own voters in her seat today. That'll be an interesting meeting. And one more for you, please, Jim.
Finally, in today's Sun, it's a story about a parent, a lady, who, in preparation for her son's gap year, has decided to stick a gizmo on him so she can track where he is on a daily basis.
Is he called Timothy, by any chance?
And, I mean, I was thinking about that, considering I've been trying to get a hold of my own son for the last 10 days, and he sends me texts, and James is 17, and funny, I never have to track him down when it comes to pocket money, and when there's a new set of trainers or Arsenal season tickets. Not a lot of tracking going on then.
There's been a lot of debate about this in the offices, whether this is a good thing or not, and I don't really get the point of it. They keep saying, well, you can find out where he is anywhere in the world. You can find out where he is. Well, if he's in Australia or he's in the jungles in Thailand, you will be asleep when he's walking around. And
well, I won't.
Well, you won't. That's true. You'll be awake, but everybody else, normal people, that excludes me as well, would be asleep. And even if, I mean, you can't tell whether they're safe or not. I mean,
it's nice to have an association with where they are, isn't it? I think so.
Well, surely the whole point is to get away.
Cut them
from
some slack,
rents, isn't it? So just get away from mum and dad. You don't want them spying on you.
Dad, I'm going to look for glowing monkeys. Leave me alone.
Nice one, Jim. What have you got, Amanda?
I've got the front page of the Daily Mail. Just 24 hours after being shamed by the Mail, Sarkozy performs an extraordinary U-turn and says the Queen is welcome at the 65th anniversary of the D-Day landings. But when you actually read it, hardly a welcome. Apparently, it says, after an outcry, they've announced that she was welcome after all. The statement says the Queen was naturally welcome in her capacity as the head of the British state, but they haven't actually formally invited her. So Buckingham Palace are now kind of saying, well, unless she's formally invited, it's kind of like saying, oh, you can come if you want.
I love the Daily Mail. There's a great piece by Stephen Glover inside.
Yes.
A diminutive egomaniac, the stain of Nazi collaboration, and why the French can't forgive us for saving them in the war. Happy days.
Twice we saved you.
They're not sitting on
Forget the first time.
They're not sitting on the fence with it,
Amanda?
but it's just it gets me really cross. The more I read about this, the crosser I get, because I just think, you know, we should all. They were saying here that D-Day veterans, most of them are nearing 85. So this celebration is probably going to be the last for.
I'd say something about the French. This really does bother me, right? So I drove up somewhere before last, up the road that goes all the way through the war graves across the Somme and stuff like that. And on the main ultra route, when you get to like the Somme, for example, the sign up by the side of the road is "Welcome to the Somme" and its famous nature park. And that's not what I know about the Somme. And there was no sign at any point on the entire motorway drive indicating come off here, war graves or anything else like that. I know you've got to move on, but you still think that is a hugely significant part of its history.
You have to move on, but you also have to...
Not if you're in the Daily Mail, of course. You just keep banging on.
Thank God for those men and women that gave their lives. 1 million weather forecast. Daily Mirror. Basically, Bournemouth are up in arms. There was a weather report. The weather guys said that it was going to rain in Bournemouth on bank holiday. Right. So nobody turned up, apparently, because nobody wanted to go to Bournemouth when it was raining. And it was one of the hottest days of the year. So Bournemouth, basically, in terms of the tourism, they've lost over £1 million. But you kind of think, well,
this probably goes both ways, then, doesn't it? What about the days when they say it's going to be sunny in Bournemouth and you get there and it pours down with rain?
Yeah, but then when it's sunny and it pours down rain, you're going to the cafes and you spend money there. So that's what they're saying, that the average person spends £41. So they've lost over £1 million. But my mum always used to say, whatever the weather forecasts say, just swap it over. And if it says it's going to rain, it will be sunny. So anyway, they're not happy. This one. Britain's oldest mum. She's given birth. Elizabeth Adney, she's become Britain's oldest mum. She gave birth at 66 to a little baby boy. Do you know what? I'm 36 now and I'm flipping exhausted. I don't know how they do it. At 66, it's not anything, this whole thing where they're saying, you know, when she's 80, he's only going to be 14 or whatever. That's not the case. It's knackering having kids. It's absolutely exhausting.
I mean, she's about the same age as my mum.
You're for sorry for the child, haven't you, really, as well?
She'll be playing at Glastonbury.
I mean, hopefully she's going to have a lot of help, because it is ever so tiring, but...
It's a head examining. Anything else?
Yeah, it's the story that we've just touched on, that Kirsty just said about before the break. Health and safety ban on fish and chip run. George Pretty, every week he would drive to the local fish and chip shop for all the other residents in the block and pick up fish and chips for them, and now apparently he's not allowed to do it, and they've posted a notice up on the notice board saying, unfortunately, the fish and chips lunch has had to be cancelled due to health and safety reasons until further notice. It takes him 3 minutes from the time he's picked the fish and chips up to get back to the sheltered accommodation. It takes about 3 minutes, but they think that there is a danger of them all getting food poisoning because the fish could get cold before he gets back.
Shame.
Bar humbug to the lot of them.
Well said. Go on then, Dominic.
I've got the front page of The Independent. Before I get to the story, there's an offer, £300 John Lewis vouchers, so very popular today in Westminster, I feel, with the MPs. The story, though, is GM monkeys. They've been able to manipulate monkey genes now to inherit the gene that they gave it. which means that they can now suffer from human illnesses, which is a massive breakthrough. They can do it with mice already, but because mice aren't as close to humans as monkeys, it's a big breakthrough for vivisection, but obviously...
Oh, that would come in handy at night. Look at that, it's cute.
Yeah, they can make them... The gene is to make the embryo can be ultraviolet, but the adult grows up and its embryos
And
will
it
then be
looks
ultraviolet.
entirely natural to me as well. I mean, why not have glow-in-the-dark creatures? It's probably God or whoever the supreme creator is. He probably just forgot about that.
That is only... Well, I have to say, Matthew, that's the gene that they can then establish the line. But it is to, you know, if you had Parkinson's disease, multiple sclerosis, you'd probably argue differently. You know, so
what? So the monkeys can help with the treatment there.
The monkeys can now suffer
glow in the dark bit.
Well, what it is they give the embryo the glow in the dark gene,
right,
and then that monkey will grow up, have children, have monkeys itself, and their embryos, their offspring, will have that gene. Now, because they pass that gene down, that allows the scientists to give them diseases that humans suffer from, and the monkeys can suffer from it. So
And do we find this... I mean...
Look, it's a controversial subject. Vivisectionists will always rail against it, but...
The heart is in the right place. The reasoning I can totally understand. But where will it end? I mean, it's just, you know...
Well, where it will end, hopefully, will be the solving of these diseases.
Well, that's one aspect. There's just, I could just think of many other things that might come off the side. I mean, I'm still waiting to get a tail. I never quite understand why you devolved the tail.
Right.
Becoming
Rock stars who glow in the dark.
Rock stars who glow in the dark.
Save a fortune on
yeah,
lighting.
exactly. Good for the planet. Good for the planet.
I could have been doing with that over these years.
Yeah. And clone armies coming in from North Korea.
Well, controversial subject, but, you know, there we are. It's a breakthrough, according to the scientists.
OK.
An amazing story in The Sun. A 24-year-old guy, Wakash Arshad, was drink driving, smashed his car into a tree, car burst into flames. He crawls out of the car screaming and shouting. The rescuers and the fire brigade ask, was anyone else in the car? He says no. His 17-year-old girlfriend was in the car, burns to death. He's obviously charged with the crime. On bail, he's arrested again for drink driving. So, I mean, he's probably going to get as much as a month, I would imagine, for that. But he's yet to be convicted. But, yeah, extraordinary story, very callous. Yeah. Emily, 17, died in the car. So
he said that there was no one in the car?
He said there was no one in the car, yeah. I mean, you could argue maybe he was in shock.
Yeah.
But it doesn't read very well.
No, it doesn't.
Interesting story in the Mail, which I think is... Basically, what they're saying is we live in a surveillance society, and we live in a society where we don't trust any adults. We sort of have this idea that paedophiles are on every corner. Yeah. And as a result of that, children are growing up not trusting adults, which I think is, you know, has some validity, really. I mean, there are no more
Do you trust people?
Well, there are no more sexual deviants than there were 30 years ago. Yeah. But when I go on holiday in Portugal, they were saying yesterday it's awash with deviants. And so you do think, well, would I let my kids go off on their own now? I probably wouldn't. So I think kids are losing out for that, in that reason. Yeah. But they're under no more risk than they were years ago. It's just how it's reported.
But the issue of trust is quite interesting. In fact, I might do that tomorrow as well.
It's a good talking point.
Because, you know, by and large, you always think you've got to be a bit of a muppet if you go around trusting everybody, because there seem to be so many people out there that take advantage.
Yeah, but
Look at our MPs, for example. You trust them to represent you, and all they're really doing is feathering their own nest.
Well, we talked about it yesterday before the show. We talked about it before the show, the bullying thing. They say the bullying's overstated in schools, so kids are living in this cotton wool environment. So,
OK, one last quick one for you.
Just a very nice story for you. Jordan Heather Mills yesterday. Today it's Lily Allen. I feel equally uninterested, but she's going to be in Neighbours. She's going to be in Neighbours. She's playing herself. She's made it. She's a star. She's now a star in her own right. She's going to be in Neighbours down south, playing a cameo role. And everyone in Australia is incredibly excited about Lily Allen. And let's hope she does a real long tour there.
After the break, how do you feel about all these celebrities talking about standing for Parliament? Are they acting for the country or for themselves to get back on telly? Could they do better or worse than the show we have at present? Would you vote for one over your incumbent MP? There's a question. 0207 173 5555 is the number for your thoughts. We'll hear as many as we can straight after the break.
What were Jordan's policies when she stood for election in 2001? Free breast implants for all, more nudist beaches, or a ban on parking tickets?